Live stream. Man, it looks like we're live. Welcome back to the Crypto Hawk program. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. I'm going to let some people show up in the top chat. I'm looking at the channel right here. Give us about 1 minute or so, 2 minutes, and then we'll get started. I'm going to log in from my YouTube channel here. There's the live show. Um, okay. Now, I did not have a notification on this program, so I'm going to have to wait for some people to show up here, obviously. And anyway, while we're waiting, what I've noticed, there's like a lot of stuff going on with Canton coin. Jim, have you been like seeing all that?
Yeah, I have. Canton's doing a lot of interesting things in the crypto space. They had a pretty big surge in terms of price performance a few months ago, but they're certainly quite involved with a lot of things going on more in the traditional finance world. What have you seen so far on your end?
Um, Massive adoption in the DTCC. Canton coin, from what I've been seeing, hooey, they're getting mixed up with the biggest investment companies in the world, like in Europe, in America. The DTCC has 30 trillion in custody. BlackRock has 13. Everybody's working with Canton. What's happening is I know there's something called R3 as a company. R3 has this Corda platform, and they use different cryptos. One of those is the XDC crypto. And what I've seen is now I'm partly guessing in some of this, but I think, okay, so R3 is like Ripple's old partner from like 2016. Ripple partnered up with R3, and XDC came from this Zinfin company, which then became XDC Foundation and stuff. And what I've seen is Ripple broke up with them back in 2016. They had a nasty little divorce in court. And then R3 was integrated into the DTCC and some of these major, the SIX digital exchange, the SIX crypto exchange in Switzerland that runs on, it's a stock market. The SIX digital exchange is a stock market in Switzerland, and it runs exclusively on R3 Corda for trade finance payments. That's what it's designed for. Now, what I think they were trying to do all these years is to get DTCC to handle everything, and it didn't work. This is where I'm guessing. And this is where Canton comes in and took over. A lot of these companies we're reading originally started using the R3 Corda, and then they switched over to Canton for the majority of the trade stuff. Now, the payments can still be the TradeFi payments are still going to be made with R3, but R3, which is the XDC Foundation, is the crypto. That crypto won't be doing as much as a lot of people thought it would. And as you've seen, everything in prices have dumped. But that crypto went from like 8 cents down to like 3 cents. And Canton comes out at like 15 cents and well, 7 cents. I mean, it's up at 15. And what's interesting is R3, they've been around for like 10 years, right? And then all of a sudden, Canton comes in on the scene, starts making all these deals with the DTCC and JP Morgan, all these big companies. And it's a beast. This Canton is an actual beast. And I've been doing deep dives on it with my channel. And it's going to be very useful. Grok is saying 10 times as big as XDC. So we'll see. But just the fundamentals, it's massive. It's got all the biggest companies in the world as partners with them. And it's a very positive looking crypto, very stable. I like it. A lot of the people like it. You can't really move it around. They do it on purpose. There's no speculation. Now, what's interesting with the Canton is that with all this big news, the price is still the same, 14, 15 cents. And a lot of people like might not understand, well, why is Canton not going up in price? Is because it's not a speculative coin. Canton is used for a purpose in global trade. It's not supposed to go up and down. You can't have, it's got to be a set price, or it's got to be like the stable price. So that's Canton is a really good bet. A lot of people are buying the Canton from my channel because it's not a it's not a speculative coin. It's got real world use case, and it's working with the biggest companies in the entire world. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to have a price set for it where it will go. It can't work at 15 cents. It's not going to. But whenever that we get the crypto laws, regulations, and all these things, crypto goes up in price and won't come down once we have crypto laws globally. We have more tokenization than we got now. So Canton coin is a very safe bet. If you want a solid crypto that has the biggest companies in the world partnered with them, that would be Canton coin.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, especially around the fact that Canton has these pretty strong partnerships and relationships with not sort of large retail players. These are some of the largest institutions in the world, right? Like Deutsche Bank, BNP Paribas. They're starting to use Canton Network to tokenize a lot of the assets that they are using and operationalize with every day. And so I think that is going to continue to be a use case that large banks and institutions, they want to use blockchain technology in everything that they're doing. And I have no doubt that asset tokenization is still, it's a very clear use case to me in terms of real world assets being tokenized. It's far more efficient, it's safer, it's a better process in terms of how to define ownership. And so there's no doubt that we'll continue to see more larger players explore tokenization. Now, whether Canton will be the main chain that they do it on, who knows? They're certainly building a lot of strategic partnerships that, as you said, they haven't even really been around for that long. So very impressive in that regard. I think the key reason that it's worked so well from them in terms of securing these partnerships is the privacy element of their blockchain. A lot of these large not crypto institutions, but traditional finance institutions, they value the privacy nature of the chain. And in fact, that's not a bug for them. That's like an actual feature that they need, especially with how much sort of large scale transactions they're doing, how a lot of assets are moving between parties. A lot of that needs to remain private for these businesses. And so they're looking to use a chain and a protocol that's actually focusing on that, and that's one of its key underpinning features of the blockchain. So I think Canton's performed really well. As you said, look, we're in a different point of the market now. We're not in a point in the market where there's so much liquidity coming in that people are throwing assets at things like meme coins and speculative assets, as you said. No doubt in these periods of time where there's a bit more of a market downturn and there's less liquidity in the market, that investors flock towards things that aren't speculative, but actually have a clear use case and actually makes sense that, hey, this could provide value to real people that are using this blockchain. So, yeah, as you said, it's actually been a very steady asset to date. It's started and hovered around sort of the 14 cents, 15 cents. It dipped below that to around 8 cents, even a little lower than that. No doubt it's got potential. That's not to say that it's going to outperform or where it could get to. But all I do know is that this is a large space with users on the blockchain that have significant capital to use on the blockchain and significant assets to tokenize.
That's very true. What we do on Crypto Hulk, more and more so, is we look at fundamentals. And right now with crypto, everything's speculative because we don't have crypto laws and regulations. Then there's private ledgers. There's private ledgers, just like we were talking about. Canton has this privacy layer, and you're not going to see all of the actual. A lot of these people are like, well, why is these crypto prices so low? And well, there's a lot of reasons for that. But what we focus on Crypto Hawk Show is the fundamentals. What cryptos are being used by what companies? Who are the advisors to these cryptos? Who's on the board of directors for these cryptos? Are they tied in with any governments like the Rise token, which is Canton's? Canton has a real estate company, Rise it's called T-Rise, and T-Rise will be the tokenizing agent for real estate. That T-Rise is hooked up with the Canadian government. So what we like to look at Crypto Hawk Show are fundamentals, cryptos that have solid partnerships. We want to identify who are the partners for Canton. And it's like the biggest in the world, the DTCC. Over in Europe, the stock market over there, the Euro market, Canton's hooked in. So we look at fundamental. Price comes from crypto laws and regulations. Price comes from tokenization. And then price comes from real world use case. What does this crypto do? Who's involved with it? Do we have legal right to use it and all these things? And that's what now we're really focusing on Crypto Hawk channel, because we're getting very close to crypto laws and regulations. So I'm showing the viewers that watch my show the most legitimate cryptos, because when these laws kick in, all the, let's say, not as well connected cryptos, they're going to fall back. You don't need 10,000 cryptos, right? There's not 10,000 use cases. So what we do on Crypto Hulk now is focus on the most important cryptos. What are the functions of these cryptos? Who are their partnerships? What are they going to be doing? Are we going to have crypto laws? Do certain cryptos, are they ISO cryptos? They have a certain function. So that's what we look at on the program, because we could see that these crypto laws, I think the Coinbase, I'm going to go over this tomorrow morning on my show, but the Clarity Act, here's what Coinbase lawyer, Mr. Gruel is his last name, Grewal, Clarity's Act will pass this summer, says the Coinbase chief legal officer. He backs stablecoin compromise and urges banks to accept the deal.
When did he say that? A couple of days ago?
May 6th, like yesterday.
Okay.
I'm like, whoa. So on Crypto Hulk Show, we're talking about, I tell the people that watch the show, if I'm not talking about a crypto at least once a week or every 2 weeks, that's probably a sign that crypto, what we want to do is find the cryptos that are right now integrating and hooking up, like Ondo. Ondo just partnered with Ripple, with BlackRock, and to run Ondo's, the BlackRock BUIDL on top of the XRP ledger. And I'm like, what? Ondo's been going crazy lately.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you said, I think part of the people that watch this channel and a lot of what we do with our clients is educating them on different assets. Obviously, as Hulk said, there's over 10,000 different coins. There's a lot of noise out there. I think the stat is on, back in the bull market or the peak demand that we saw of last year, I think there was 30,000 coins being created every day on Pump Fund, right? So there's just a lot of noise out there. But there are legitimate businesses that are providing genuine use cases to this industry. And as you said, Canton Network's one. There is a lot of partnerships going on with, say, Ondo and Ripple, and even now on the XRP ledger, Solana has an ecosystem and a connection there, so you can actually trade RLUSD on the Solana chain, and you can also use a bunch of Solana's DeFi applications with your XRP. And so there's just a lot of interoperability and connectiveness between different chains. Now, I'm of the belief that you need to be a little conscious on when, multiple chains and companies say they're partnering together. What does that really mean? Is there actual value being flowing between the two chains, or is it sort of more of a PR stunt or just a media thing? But there's no doubt that, as you mentioned, Canton has clear, genuine partnerships and is working with large banks and institutions. And Ripple Labs as well is very active in this space. So I think it's important to be aware of these assets. Again, just because they're doing these things doesn't necessarily mean that the price will be reflective of that. Now, in a different market, the news of a lot of what Canton's doing may have been reflected more, and people may have had more money to put into it. But ultimately, I think, it's important to be across these assets that are genuinely doing things to help progress the industry forward. And it's clear that Canton is a very interesting use case and blockchain that's doing that.
All right, let's look at some questions here. Gary Hurst doesn't like the Caleb and Brown wire transfer, and he also doesn't like how he believes Canton has an infinite supply. So he totally does not understand. Gary needs to go watch Crypto Hulk's program on Canton. I went over Canton very clearly in depth. It XDC they only burn up 10%. Actually, they only burn up 10% of their fees, whereas Canton burns 100%. I'm not here to talk about Canton's economics, but what some people do is they don't watch my show and then they come on the this right here and they say nonsense. So I took down his one question about Canton. He obviously doesn't know anything about it, but he's leaving comments on my show. So I went ahead and hid this person from my channel. Let's talk about the wire transfer. In Australia, it's commonplace, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty commonplace in Australia. We know it's not the most common way to move funds for US individuals. All I would say is to Gary that most US banks don't charge a wire fee. So if it's charging you a pretty disproportionate wire fee, firstly, maybe try a new bank because they shouldn't be doing that. But if they are, I mean, that doesn't then stop you from maybe on-ramping your fiat or US dollars to another platform and then just moving those assets over to Calvin Brown. I know that's not ideal. We are looking at better ways to on ramp. And I've always said this to this community is that I think we can do a better job in terms of allowing our clients to on ramp in a more efficient way. The reason that we hadn't done sort of credit card payments and stuff like that in the past is that usually those fees are very significant, whereas wire transfers are usually free. And so this is very much a directive from your bank. And so if you have another bank, if you have a different bank that you could use instead of your current bank, I assure you that most don't charge wire transfer fees. But that is to say also that we are looking at different ways in which allowing our clients to on-ramp with us outside of just wire transfers. So we're hoping that will become usable pretty soon here, but I'll keep you updated in regards to that. But in the meantime, I would either try a new bank or on ramp with another platform and then just move those assets over to CMB, which will have no cost to you to do that.
Christian Frost says, "Hey Jim, when are you guys coming to Trinidad and Tobago?"
Trinidad and Tobago, probably. Yeah, look, right now we're just focused on the jurisdictions that make sense for us and also the jurisdictions that we have our licenses in, right? And that's probably the bigger one around the regimes and regulatory environments in a lot of countries are changing, and they're changing what you need to do as a digital asset business to actually operate in those jurisdictions and countries. So Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, I wouldn't say we have a large amount of demand from people in those areas to use our servers. So it's probably not at the number one top of the list compared to, say, the UK or other European countries. So unfortunately, I don't have a direct, timeline on that. But that's to say that, long term, we want to continue to operate in further markets outside of the ones we already work in. But there's just a lot that goes into that, both from, as I mentioned, a licensing and regulatory environment perspective, but even more importantly, like how we actually facilitate and work with those countries with our brokers to make sure you're getting the best customer experience possible. So, yeah, sorry, unfortunately, I don't have an update on Trinidad and Tobago specifically. But long term, we hope to continue to expand our team and offer our services in more jurisdictions.
Just from what my personal opinion has nothing to do with business or Caleb Brown or nothing is, I think that in the future, the world's going to become vastly more connected. Would you agree?
Definitely. We're already seeing that now.
So I think in the future, crypto wise, digital wise, now, I mean, Wells Fargo, I did a show the other day. Wells Fargo just applied for a patent. They're going to have, and I've been telling all the viewers to watch my show, we're getting close when my Wells Fargo phone app has a crypto wallet. Guess what? I did a show on the other day. Wells Fargo coming out with a crypto wallet. They said it all. They're going to have staking, this, that, everything. So Trinidad and Tobago, I'm telling you what, you just hold tight. because this whole world's digitally connecting on a thing called a blockchain. And then pretty soon you'll be able to have access services whenever that becomes available for the whole world. Remember, we got to have global crypto regulations, right? So your country might think this about crypto, Bermuda might think that. When we are all in the whole world on the same page with what's what in crypto and that, then everything can come together. And then I have a feeling in the future, you're probably going to have a Kalen Brown Connect. I don't know when that date will happen, but when everything connects around the world and we're all looking at the same cryptos and we're all calling a security and everybody's calling when we have clarity, basically is what's going on. So I think it'll just take some time. But anyhow, what do I know, right? Somebody says, I need help taking my Canton off Uphold and transferring it to Caleb and Brown.
Yeah, let's get those assets off Uphold. We can definitely help with that. So Rediggy is the name. I'm not sure if you already have a Caleb Brown account, so maybe just confirm if you do. If you do, that's where your broker can help you and just provide instructions on how to do it. It's pretty simple. So you just log into your Caleb Brown account. You'll have a Canton wallet with us, and then that will be the wallet address that you provide to say Uphold in terms of where the asset's been transferred to. You'd use that wallet address. So a pretty seamless process. We usually recommend to not hold assets on exchanges just because we've seen so many issues in the past with exchanges that go under ownership of your assets. Usually you cede them to the exchange when you hold your assets there. So if something happens to that exchange, and it's happened to me in the past with FTX, I had to go through a 2-year creditor claim process to try and get my assets back. And so usually when it comes to custodying, you either want to custody yourself in a cold wallet or you want to use an institutional grade custody provider like Caleb Brown. And so, yeah, long story short, we can definitely help with that. Let me know if you're a client already, and we can get the broker to reach out and help you move those assets over.
Yakima says, do you have a department that just goes through different cryptos all day to determine whether to add them to your platform?
Yeah, I mean, they do more than just that. So our operations team who handle things like trading, they handle how we do liquidity. They work very closely with how we do custody as well. It's a pretty all-encompassing area of the business, and to be honest, the most important part, obviously our brokers are great, and myself with partners, but at the end of the day, the back end security and operational side of the business is the most important. So we have a team within that does a lot of reviews on assets. And so that team has reviewed, I don't know, I'd say probably close to like 5,000 plus crypto assets. And then we also do legal reviews of every asset as well. So our legal team will also do a review of it. That was more relevant back in the day. I mean, it's still relevant now, but around, is an asset operating more like a commodity or a security? What is the functionality of the token? What's the team behind it? We're pretty thorough in everything that we do. And so that's not the only thing that they do, but we spend a lot of time on that. And so, we list close to 300 assets, but we're consistently reviewing every single asset and making sure that it's still viable for our clients to buy in out of positions of it, especially at large amounts.
He says, if you do have that department, you should definitely hire Hulk.
Yeah, well, Hulk's, I think Hulk, if I'm remembering correctly, I mean, you're talking about Canton really early days, like before we have got the sort of mainstream adoption now and it's a bit more well known. And I remember, I think it was this community that asked me about Canton initially. We did our due diligence and then we listed it. So there's been quite a few that have come through that we haven't been able to list, but there's no doubt that this is a great space to find good utility cryptos, and you can't fault Hulk for all the research that he does. So everyone that listens is in good hands.
So also, you guys check it out. So Caleb and Brown's a business, and they take it upon themselves that they don't want to list a crypto that might be sketchy or this and that because they don't want you getting ripped off. Okay, now on my channel, this is it's not a business. So when you buy a crypto, that's yours. Whether it's a scam, you're like, oh damn, I bought the wrong one. A business can't do what we do. You get it? They got to follow something called laws and business. There, I'm sure in the crypto world, there's certain practices of how you're supposed to do things. And look, we're just speculators. And I can research stuff. Yeah, I found Canton like 9, 10 months ago or whatever, long old time ago, and I find a lot of these cryptos, and some of them don't make it, you know. I try to put legitimate products on my program, no scam stuff at all. And it's got to have some kind of connection or it doesn't go on my program. Like all the time, I got members that are showing me, Crypto Hawk, what about this? What about that? And I'll review it. I got Grok and I got like 50 words and I got like I got words and phrases and all kinds of things programmed into my Grok that helps me do research. But they're a business. Caleb Brown's a business, and you guys are speculators. Like you expect out of all the cryptos that we look at or we buy, some of them are going to be duds. And that's because, I mean, you can't pick 100% of the winners, but they're running a business and they can't be speculating like, see what? Like with us, I could dump 500 bucks into something. If it turns out to be a dud, oh well. But a business can't be like, they can't have crypto listed just because I think it sounds cool and then ends up being a dud. That's not how you run a business. So their angle is they got a legal angle. He just said a legal angle, and they got to run it by the legal team. And we don't do that on my show. I mean, one time we bought a crypto, the MFG one, and we bought the wrong one. A lot of you guys made 5,000 bucks off that or 3,000, but we bought the wrong crypto. Ken Brown can't do that. You know, like we were all good because we got in first. It pumped up. This is like a year ago or something, but we got in and we got out. That was the first crypto we ever talked about. I didn't know quite what I was doing, but now it's different. I only talk about cryptos that are 100% legit in my book, but they might not be legally legit in Caleb Brown's book. So I understand what he's kind of saying, but our show is not a business. So you guys can buy shit and it's okay if it ends up being or whatever, because you're not gonna. It's just different. They're running a business, you guys.
Yeah,
Um,
and the key difference with that as well is like a lot of these smaller exchanges or even just like decentralized exchanges will allow you to buy any asset that you want under the sun. The key difference here is that we're an institutional grade brokerage. And so we have to list assets that we can safely custody in cold storage. So your assets are actually protected at all times. And then even more importantly, like we need to have sufficient liquidity. So if one of our high net worth clients wants to buy, $1 million worth of something, they're not going to move the market too much and they can actually exit out of that position as well. So there's a whole range of factors that go into whether we list an asset. But the most important thing is that we do our thorough review of every asset. And so if we list it, you can feel at least safe and assured that it's not a rug pull or, something negative will happen in regards to holding it. Now, that's not to say that it's going to perform well in the long run, but it certainly means that we'll be able to custody it safely for you, which is an important element of it all.
okay. um, Dryer Vent Solution Shop says Rise needs to be on Caleb and Brown. And again, Caleb Brown, I mean, Rise is a very tiny crypto right now. I'll tell you what, once we get these crypto laws, or let's say this, once Rise gets to tokenizing more and more, and it has a very legitimate purpose, then most likely Caleb Brown's going to pick it up. But right now, it's not really, I don't think it's really doing anything. So they're not really going to put a crypto on there just because, oh, it's cheap. It's 0.003 cents. That's not, you need to have some kind of functionality going on before it starts. A crypto, they're like you just said, they're not going to list just anything. Some of these crypto exchanges, they don't care what it is. They'll put it on there, So Caleb Brown, what do you guys got? 300 cryptos you just said?
Yeah, around 300.
Okay, so you guys, these cryptos that we look at, some of them are like super tiny, and they've got to kind of grow a little bit and prove. They got to prove themselves, right? It goes from concept to real life. A lot of these cryptos are still in that concept phase where they really aren't being used at scale, and they're brand new and shit. And you guys get in early, and guess what? You're gonna have to just wait. That's what it is. So And that's a good thing. I'm going to show you the cryptos. Conceptually, they're good. Now, whether they become a success or not, I can't tell what happens, you know? But we can look at all the partnerships and all the things that they got going, and it looks like a great one. Like, look at Root. I don't know what the hell happened to Root. I still haven't given up hope. But I used to have 8,000 bucks worth of Root, and now I think it's worth 300 bucks. That one has a ton of partnerships, and its parent company has a lot of partnerships as well. But right now, it's kind of not doing a damn thing. So somebody needs to resuscitate that. I think Animoca Brands is a Web3 company, and Animoca Brands, I think if anybody's going to be, because they're all into Web3, I think they would buy Root Network and then bring it back to life. So for me, I'm holding on to my Root. I got 2 or 3 million or whatever. Um, Maybe it becomes a dud. I don't know, but I'm holding it because I think Animoca is going to take it over. So let's look at the next here. Um, hey Jim, Oh, hey, Jim, can you add a beneficiary to your personal account?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually a pretty interesting theme that was pretty relevant throughout my time in the US. And so I'll answer the question first, and I'll give the reason as to why, but also sort of loop it around as to why it's actually a really big benefit for Calvin Brown clients. So you can't directly add the beneficiary into your account. So some platforms will allow you to write who the beneficiary is. We used to have that. And then we ran into a lot of issues where when clients would pass away or something would happen to them, and we'd work with the executor of the will to make sure that whatever assets they're holding with Calvin Brown go to the rightful owner, or the rightful beneficiary. A lot of the time, the beneficiary that that client had put in their Calvin Brown account didn't match up with what was in their will. And at the end of the day, we're obviously going to go through the legal documentation in terms of who the rightful beneficiary is. And so we don't allow for a beneficiary to be inputted just because we've found that a lot of people input in names of people that aren't actually in their will. And so we don't allow for that. What we do allow for is that if you wanted to send details to us around your will, who the beneficiary is if something happens to you, we'll handle all of the estate planning element side of things if something is to happen to you as a client. And that was something that I think is a really big value add for a lot of people that want to use our service. A lot of people are very pro crypto, but it doesn't necessarily mean their friends and family or their partners are. And a lot of the time, these people don't even know that the client is even holding crypto. And so if you're holding your assets on an exchange and something happens to you and you pass away, a lot of the time that crypto is just lost because the family member doesn't even know that they had the crypto. And so the key difference and the reason why a lot of clients are starting to use us more is that we actually help with that estate planning side of things. So we reach out to the relevant executor of the will. Our legal team will work with the relevant authorities to make sure that we know who that is. And then we'll make sure that those assets go to the rightful beneficiary. Whether that's they want to hold the crypto themselves, or in a lot of instances, we have, wives, sons, daughters that just want us to sell off the assets and withdraw it to a bank account. And we'll process that as well. And so that's a really key benefit of using us is that not only do you get the broker for a whole range of things related to your portfolio, you also have the assurance that, hey, if something happens to you tomorrow, your assets are with us and we can make sure that they go to whoever they need to go to if something's to happen. So that's a really big value add. And I think something that a lot of us, even myself, should be thinking about. What are the wealth preservation plans in place if something's to happen to me? Where does that crypto go? And have that assurance that it goes to the right person.
This is from Dragonfly 001. Is Ondo on Caleb and Brown?
Ondo is on Caleb and Brown. Yeah. So I believe full functionality as well. So you should be able to buy, sell, and swap. Um, I'm pretty certain on that. Maybe don't hold me to that. I'll have a look now. But I'm pretty certain you can purchase Ondo through Calvin Brown.
And then when will you have the Android app?
Yeah, so right now we're just on iOS app. So if you have an iPhone, you can download the Calvin Brown and app, log in that way. Android is a little bit further away just because when we did the initial analysis on building the app, We just didn't find we had that many Android users. But again, I seem to get questions about it all the time. So I don't know how accurate the data was. So yeah, I don't have a timeline on that. It's something that our dev team is working on. I would say though that if you are on Android, it's pretty seamless just to go on either Chrome or Safari and log into your Calvin Brown account that way anyway. I know it's not as clean and user friendly as probably the app, although I would say that I've used Calvin Brown on Android before, and it's pretty similar in terms of the user experience you get. So yeah, I know it's not exactly the same as an app, but it works pretty well on a browser as well.
Alrighty then. Stu Lavelle says, "Get your wills done. It's not tempting fate. It's just common sense. No matter what age you are."
Yeah, I think shoes on the money there. We have a lot of clients that yeah, we've just found that a lot of clients over the journey haven't really thought about that, and they're holding assets on a cold wallet, as an example. But then their family members have no idea how to access those funds on the cold wallet. Don't even know what a cold wallet is. Wouldn't even know where the private key is, right? So the key benefit of working with us is that yes, your assets are protected in cold storage, but if something's to happen to you, those assets are going to the right person at the end of the day, because we will work really closely with the relevant authorities to make sure that's the case. If your assets are on a cold wallet and no one knows where the private key is, those assets are gone forever, which is a pretty upsetting and bad time for the family members, especially because they're dealing with the death as well. So we try and make that process as seamless and stress free for them as possible.
Interesting. Let's look at currently what's happening in the world as far as regulations, or what are you like? Okay, Ripple, Las Vegas. What was your takeaway? What did you learn, or what company did you see? Like, because I couldn't go this time. I was going to go, but unfortunately I couldn't make it. But what takeaway would you say that you saw there that was different than last year, or what was the general feeling of crypto, or something like that? Because a lot of us probably didn't get to go. So maybe talk a little bit about
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
Yeah. So for those that aren't aware, and I do have to say before I go any further that I had a lot of Hulky members come up to our booth and say hello. Um, it's a very tight knit community, and so I just met a lot of people there that came by the booth that mentioned this channel and mentioned this community. So that was really nice to see, because obviously, I try and get on the show every couple of weeks, so it's good to get that feedback. Um, in terms of the conference itself, I thought it was a very impressive attendance and interest level from everyone at the conference, considering compared to last year's one, I think XRP was around $2, $2.20. This year, it's obviously, a lot less than that, around $1.40. So naturally, there was a drop off in interest, apparently, the Bitcoin conference. But I found the XRP conference was just still full of energy. There were a lot of people that were interested in what we do. And I think that's going to continue to grow, in that a lot of people are very conscious around holding assets themselves. And so I spoke to a lot of people that are very confident and capable in holding a cold wallet and holding their assets on a cold wallet. But they don't necessarily want to deal with the stress involved of effectively becoming their own bank. And so that was a common theme that came out of the event for the people we spoke to. I would say the estate planning one was an interesting, eye-opening theme for me that I didn't probably really appreciate, in that a lot of people are holding these assets for the long term. And I would say that the conference probably skews older generation than younger generation. I think that's a fair statement to make. And so these are the people that are thinking about not only their assets for their life and doing well financially, but also thinking about it more on generational experience. And so I spoke to a lot of people that are setting up family trusts, LLCs, and making sure that their family, even in an indirect manner, get exposure to crypto. And so I thought that was a very interesting theme as well. Because back in the day, crypto was very much just like an anonymous thing that I would invest in, or Hulk would invest in, to earn a gain for ourselves. And very rarely would it be to invest on behalf of others. And so that was an interesting theme now, where people are starting to think about this more at a generational level, especially XRP holders that want to hold the asset for the long term. So I would say that's I would say that was an interesting theme. And then the other key thing that I got out of the conference was just that, I mean, they made that announcement around Solana and Ripple and the XRP ledger sort of coming together. We spoke about it before, but just the interoperability between different blockchains. Even Zebek was there, and Zebek had some interesting announcements on what they're doing with XRP Ledger as well. So I just think you're going to see more and more of that, where some blockchains are great for some areas and have deficiencies in others, and that's where they'll start to partner and do more with other blockchains and effectively work together to make the entire system sort of more cohesive. So that was, I think, they're sort of the key things I got out of the event. Outside of just the general enthusiasm that people still have for crypto, which is nice to go to one of those events and feel that, because I feel like the last 3 or 4 months has been pretty tough to be a crypto supporter. But there's no doubt that there's still so much more adoption and interest, and I think we're going to get more and more of that to come. Especially just given, I wouldn't say the economy is super red hot right now. There's a lot of inflation issues. There's a massive debt crisis in the US, obviously, but also there's a huge, geopolitical tension with what's happening in Iran, and that's raising natural resource prices like oil. And so people are feeling the pinch, and I got that feedback as well around. Look, I love this asset class, but people don't have the same amount of money that they had a year ago to invest in it, because the rising costs of living of oil and food and consumption of everyday life is very much taken a lot of that capital away from investments like crypto. So, yeah, a lot that came out of the event, but it was a good 3 or 4 days just to speak to different people, both retail and institutions as well.
Um, at the conference, what would you, okay, how many people were there in their like early 20s? Because what I'm trying to figure out is it seems very strange that all the Bitcoin, the Ripple and all that was made by like Jed McCaleb. He helped found Ripple, and the David Schwartz. He's a little bit maybe on the older end, but a lot of these younger guys invented all this crypto. So you'd think that everybody in their 20s would be, but what kind of age group of people was at this conference? The majority of them.
Well, I'll probably preface by saying that XRP skews older generation anyway. Like, I think if you speak to the age demographic of XRP supporters, and XRP supporters to the point where they're actually willing to go to this conference and spend a ticket, and you're talking about the people that have the highest conviction. There's no doubt that it skews older generation. That's not to say that there's not a lot of interest amongst young people as well. And I had a chance to speak to a range of people that are building really interesting business cases in the crypto ecosystem that are big believers in XRP as well. So I would say that there is a range, but there's no doubt in terms of the people that go to these conferences, it's probably more older generation. That's not to say that there isn't support for, say, XRP from the younger generation. What I would say is the people that I spoke to that are probably more on the younger side, there's no doubt that they have more of an interest in utility assets. Like, they're probably thinking more deeper around, what am I actually investing in? What's the use case behind this? And so I think that's good to see, because I think we probably need to get out of this landscape of, I'm just going to throw money at things and it's a meme and it's funny and it's got no real utility or meaning behind it. I think we're slowly starting to pivot away from that. Now, I think meme coins will always have their place. People are connected to what is funny to them, what brings community to them. But I thought that was an interesting tidbit out of it as well, is a lot of people more interested in what are the businesses and projects and blockchains that are actually building something that's genuinely useful that people will use in the long term. So I would still, I mean, Vegas in general, I've only been twice. It seems to be skew more older generation anyway. It doesn't really seem to attract a lot of 20-year-olds. Now, I might have just been in the wrong places, but it seemed to me that it was a lot more on the older generation side. But maybe you have a bit more of an insight on that, considering you've probably spent more time there than I have.
Yeah, I'm looking at like in general, I think maybe out of Bitcoin, see, when I got into crypto, I think Bitcoin was around $12,000. Around 2020, when I was looking at crypto, I think Bitcoin was around 11 or 12. And then as I got into crypto, it eventually hit like 126,000. I think what we have, I'm just kind of curious on you know, are people at all levels interested in crypto, or is it the younger people? Because what I'm afraid of is the older people have seen all the scams and all this stuff. So the older people kind of know what's good and what's not. I don't know if the younger people have as much experience, and they're gonna assume, oh, all this crypto shit is just fake. And then I hope the younger people aren't going to miss out because they've seen the FTX scam, they've seen all the scam stuff, but they haven't had the time in crypto to look at fundamentals and what banks are going to use what crypto. It's not, I don't care what Hollywood rock star or some football player, like, to me, I don't even care what they have to say. On Crypto Hulk Show, we look at fundamentals only. Like, I don't even care what the price is. Like, I don't care if it's 0.00002 cents. If it's got the right partners and this and that, then we buy it, and then we just wait for a fundamental use case. And but it's just, are younger people going to miss out on this, do you think? Because or not? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that there's no doubt if you look at like adoption rates for crypto, among the age brackets of sort of say maybe 25 to 35, it's quite strong for crypto. I think there's no doubt that a lot of the younger generation now, and myself are included in this, um, it's really hard to get exposure to say property because the price has been overinflated. I mean, you look at the S&P 500 right now, it just continues to hit all-time highs. And so a lot of the assets in the market, if you look at them objectively, are pretty overinflated. And so people are, especially younger generation investors, are looking towards alternative assets like crypto, like Bitcoin, like gold, like silver even. And so I think a lot of the younger generation are looking at the economy currently, and they're looking at the debt crisis. They're looking at the loss of purchasing power with the US dollar. They're also looking at how much the US dollar is being printed every year and don't really see that as a feasible way in which to invest their assets in the long term. And so I think there's no doubt that the younger generation are adopting alternative assets like crypto at a faster rate. And, sometimes you'll meet a 20-year-old, like they, the 20-year-olds that are coming through now have lived with an iPhone their entire life, right? They've lived on the internet. So they're so much more technologically savvy than even myself or yourself. And they live online. And so a lot of what they do is processing transactions and wanting to find new ways to do things. And I think crypto is a place for them to do that. I think for us as a business, I mean, a brokerage is definitely more valuable in our opinion to more older generation people. The reason for that is because older generation people like to actually speak to someone about their portfolio. A lot of the time they have more money. I mean, in most instances, they have more money. And so, but they're not willing to spend, I don't know, $500,000 in an exchange without speaking to someone, right? It's a more of an old school way of doing business. And so there's no doubt in terms of the clients we usually work with, their older generation. But that's not to say that as a whole, the younger generation isn't interested or invested in crypto. I actually think it's the opposite. It's more so probably they just don't have the same level of funds to really get the same sort of returns that a lot of the old generation crypto investors are getting.
Because when I was coming up, the only thing you could really buy is like a house, or you'd have to get a stock account somewhere. And this opens up a whole new, I mean, and then you had to buy stocks like $5, $20 a piece, or 100, or but crypto is like something where we're at the very beginning, where all the prices are low, where now is like the perfect time. Like, if there was a younger person watching the show, like, now is the damn time, man. Everything is so cheap. And we once this gets adopted, and then everything gets tokenized, then the prices go up with tokenization. The more you tokenize and put something on a blockchain, that creates staying power. That price will stay there. What we got now is goes up and then down and then up and then down. But once you tokenize, and you're tokenizing trillions and trillions and putting that on a blockchain, that stays right there. That crypto goes up and it don't come down, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think we're in a very interesting point in the market, and as you said, I think it's important for us to get adoption not only from younger generation, but also I think something that gets lost in people like us in Australia and even in the US is that Yeah, look, a lot of developed countries are interested in crypto and using it, but there's a whole other world out there of people in developing countries that can't trust their bank, can't trust their government. They may have a currency that's hyperinflated or they can't even use the currency. And so there's a whole spectrum of people. If you look at adoption rates, Africa is one of the largest ones for cryptocurrency. And so it's an alternative for a lot of people that can't trust the actual financial system they're currently in. And so I think we're going to see more adoption even from developing countries where, yeah, they don't have a bank account because they can't trust their bank, or they've been debanked, but they all have internet connection. They can all get exposure to crypto that way and um, essentially conduct commerce and finance that way. So I think we'll start to see more growth from these developing countries that are looking for alternative means to invest, but also just to transact their money day to day. I think we sometimes get lost that we have pretty legitimate financial institutions and systems in developed countries, and that's not always the case for other people around the world. So I think that's also something to take into consideration.
Yeah, it's true. Stuart Lavelle says it would be interesting to see the age demographics of Caleb and Brown holders. That would probably be private stuff. Caleb Brown's not going to want to really advertise, but yeah, it would be
Yeah, I
kind
can
of.
assure you. I can assure you, it's like, yeah, without getting sort of in the weeds specifically, our main demographic of client is someone in around 45 to 55, um, high net worth individuals, someone that is pretty successful in whatever business domain they're in, and they're looking to invest in crypto, as an alternative asset to what they already have in their portfolio. That's kind of the main client. But
Wow.
as you can imagine, like we work with, I mean, some of our clients are in their 90s investing in crypto, right? Like some people are massive outliers, and we work with a lot of 80-year-olds and 90-year-olds. We also work with a lot of 20-year-olds that are looking to safely invest and hold their crypto not just in a cold wallet, but in an institutional grade cold storage solution as well. So we definitely service a whole broad spectrum of clients, but I would say sort of the 45 to 55-year-old is our main demographic of client. Are you there, Hulk? You might have frozen on my end. Can everyone still hear me? I can't hear Hulk, but I'm still in. Oh, it looks like I might be the host now. We might have lost Hulk. So that's okay. Not sure what's happened there, but if anyone's got any, we're pretty much at time. But if anyone's got any sort of final questions, please feel free to send them through. Um, I'd be more than happy to address them. But if not, then we might just end it here. Okay. Okay. Uh, Yeah, so B. Warren asked, what's the Fort Lauderdale address? So the Fort Lauderdale address I can't provide publicly. We are providing it to our clients. It is just something, okay, you'll be there next week. B. Warren, please reach out to your broker and let them know. We'd love to have you come by the office. And that's an invitation that we're extending to all of our clients. But we're just not publicly revealing it just for, I mean, there's security matters, but a range of other matters as well. We just need to be a bit careful, especially in certain parts of the US around providing that publicly. But we are offering the address to our clients. So just reach out to your broker, let them know you'll be in Fort Lauderdale and you want to come by the office, and they'll be able to arrange a time for you to come in. Is there any final questions? It's a bit weird doing this by myself with with complete silence. So let me know if there are any final questions. If not, will end it here. And I think we'll do another one next week at the normal time. So hopefully we'll have further developments in the crypto space. Maybe the Clarity Act gets passed, who knows? But if there are any sort of initial or final questions, what I'll do is I'll put my email in the chat. If anyone's got any questions or maybe have a family member you want to sign up or whatever, let me know. If not, we'll probably end it here. All right, cool. Everyone, have a good evening, have a good day if you're in Australia. And I'll be on again next week. So we'll chat then, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.